If for whatever reason you haven't noticed by now, I tend to cover a lot of obscure games, maybe even games that were overshadowed by other, more popular titles at the time. I couldn't even tell you why, it's just something I've always enjoyed making reviews for, even if I know, yes, damn well, I won't get any views on the videos. It doesn't really matter to me. Which of course brings us to this game. Heroes Over Europe, a sequel to the game Heroes of the Pacific, which was released back in 2005. And that game got generally good reviews. Heroes Over Europe, on the other hand, came out in 2008 for the PC, 360, and the PS3. Developed by an Australian company called Transmission Games. An interesting little tidbit about the game's backstory is that Heroes Over Europe was originally supposed to be published by Atari, but due to Atari not doing well financially, and later filing bankruptcy in 2013, Ubisoft took the reins as sole publisher of the game. Atari might actually be an interesting publisher to possibly cover in a future Rise and Fall video, but who knows. Heroes Over Europe's story is, well, interesting. No, not for anything that actually goes on in the story. It's honestly so standard, run-of-the-mill World War II stuff that you're probably not going to remember any of it a month or two after you play it. No, but what is interesting about the story is the kinda odd way it was told. So, you have 4 different squadrons, basically 4 different storylines, which is fine. There's plenty of other games that have multiple storylines going on and multiple characters that you can play as. But in this game, it flip-flops from storyline to storyline, like almost every other level, instead of, going through each squadron, storyline, whatever, one by one. It's such a bizarre choice, and because of this, it makes following the story and the characters involved a little bit more complicated than it ever really should be. Also, the cutscenes don't really help matters. They're not engaging in the slightest. You have the pre-game cutscenes that are just slightly animated images accompanied by narration, sorta kinda like the comic book style that has been heavily popularized over the years. And then you have the in-game cutscenes, where there's usually not a whole lot ever going on. Maybe the camera shows a few planes flying, maybe a building or two, a dogfight, a chase scene, I don't know, with bits of dialogue. That's all there really is to it. There's nothing really immersive to the story, the way it's told. The characters involved, not a whole lot to keep the average player all that interested. The acting is, again, nothing special. I've heard a lot of complaints in regards to the accents being terrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm desensitized to it. Hearing abysmal acting from many other games I've played, like Trouble Witch's Neo, Octomania, which is a game I absolutely love, even the older Resident Evil games. The acting is so much worse than those, it's ridiculous.
Sure is green and pleasant around here. I think I can see all the way to France. What's it like down on the ground over there, Cliff? I'm guessing dirty. Come in, 79. Please adjust heading to Rye RDF station west along the cliffs.
My word, Gobble! You're the big. You're covered in mud and germs, Gobble.
How dare you call me dirty, you pig!
Very well. I'm a cleric. There is nothing I cannot do. You speak human, yet you look nothing like one. Who are you, really?
I am actually your father.
Such insolence!
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more!
The graphics, I would say, they're alright. It's certainly not the best looking airplane game on console, and it's certainly nowhere near being the worst. It hovers somewhere around the middle. The planes look pretty damn good. The lighting is totally fine. The only areas I am not impressed with are things involving the ground, like the buildings, the trees, objects, textures, even the water. To me, it felt like the overall attention to detail was lacking in those areas compared to many other games in this same sort of genre. On the plus side, I did not seem to come across any problems whatsoever with frame rate, any sort of slowdown speeds when action gets more intense, or when explosions would pop up on screen. Which those complaints seem to be a regular theme on my channel with the games I often cover, so I consider this to be a pretty big positive. Before we move on, I want to take a quick moment here and give a huge shout out to a new clothing brand that I came across recently during my last Where's the Deals episode. The company is called Yhama, and I'm a huge supporter of artists, especially those who have a passion for what they are creating. And with Yhama, every single piece of art that's put on the clothing or the other merch that they have is created by the artist himself, and I think that is so cool. So if you're into the whole anime streetwear clothing, then I think you're going to enjoy Yhama's stuff. I do have a link in the description that'll give you guys 10% off your entire order. I am not sponsored or affiliated with Yhama other than the fact that we've chatted a few times, and I really want to help promote the brand. Sorry for taking up your time, but please do give Yhama a look and show the artist some love and support. This is, without a doubt, an arcade-style game. Fast-paced, simple yet effective controls, it's very easy, straightforward game to pick up and to be able to understand in a matter of minutes. They do offer two different types of controls, one that is more on the simulator style, but it's very forgiving and not all that complex, meaning that if you are heavily into that simulator style of controls, I don't think this is what you would expect from the games you would typically play. Like I said, the controls are simple, almost too simple. Truth be told, there's really not a whole lot going on here. Yeah, you can track and switch from target to target, and you can zoom in like you can in most games in the genre. Although, a few things are missing. For one, you're stuck with just one camera view. There's no cockpit view, or even the basic HUD view. Yeah, you can spin the camera around freely, you can see behind you, but that doesn't really count. There's also no way to give any commands to allies to help attack certain targets, or defend you if you have someone on your tail. You can adjust your speed with the analog stick, but it's all done very static. Like, there's no actual throttle gauge or anything like that. You either go default speed, max speed, or you brake. It's possibly the most bare bones airplane game I have ever played. And even though some would classify this as an air combat simulator, I can't. It's impossible for me to call it that because of how arcadey this is. There is one slightly interesting feature to the gameplay, and that is the whole ace kill thing, but it kind of sucks. Basically what this does is that when you are tracking your opponent, it'll build like a gauge in the center, and then at a certain point you're able to activate the ace kill mode, and when you do activate it, it goes into a slow-mo. You have to target the enemy's weak spots in order to get an instant kill. It sounds like a cool idea in theory, but it gets old and tiring very quickly. Honestly, I do not use it unless I absolutely have to because of how mundane it is. When it comes to the gameplay and the missions, yeah, you know, the objectives change. Maybe you can take on a whole squadron of bombers before they destroy some allied building. Maybe there's some straight up dogfighting. You may have to take down some ground units. Technically, the game is varied in the objectives that you have to complete, but as you progress through the story, going level by level, I kept having this nagging sensation of wanting more and more from the game, and at no point at all did it ever deliver. Every level felt exactly the same to me in terms of its core gameplay. Yeah, the objectives vary, but if it doesn't affect the way the game is played, or its pacing, or the core gameplay, I guess, then it really doesn't matter. It's also easy as piss. Even on the harder difficulties, I think the average skilled player would be able to beat this game without too much problems. On the easiest of modes, you could take like thousands of enemy rounds and your health won't even be at half. It's really weird to me. I don't think I've ever played a game prior to this, to my knowledge, where I almost had to go out of my way to die in it. It's also not a very long game. I wouldn't be shocked if the average player could complete this in a matter of an afternoon's worth when they got home from school, or work, or God knows what else you do. And I wouldn't say that this game has much replay value to it, if any at all. It's one of those games where, unless you're going out of your way to unlock everything, or to get all of the trophies or achievements, you're probably not going to play this again for quite a long time, if at all. Even then, you can't get all the trophies because some of them are linked to the online multiplayer that is no longer available. Also, unlike a ton of other games like this, there's no instant action type mode or any sort of like training mode where you pick the map, the plane you want, maybe the enemy and allied aircrafts and the number of them, maybe even an objective, and you go from there. This game doesn't have any of that. Don't get me wrong, I know I've been somewhat critical of Heroes Over Europe, but I don't think it's like a bad game or terrible, anything like that. I think my problem is because I've played so many other games in the genre or genre like it, going into a game like Heroes Over Europe felt like a massive step back in terms of how much it lacks compared to any of those other games. I guess Heroes possibly might be a alright introduction to those who've maybe never played an airplane combat type game before, whereas other games that favor a more simulator style might have a hell of a learning curve. This one has absolutely none. Like a young child should be able to pick up this game with very little problems. It's that easy. Here's a new segment I'm going to introduce here on my video called Everybody's a Critic. The concept here is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go online on Metacritic and read off some reviews of what other people are saying, both with the user reviews as well as actual critics. So this first one here comes from GameShark. He says that if you are a gamer that's a little bit intimidated by IL-2 Stormovic and are sick of playing Hawks, then Heroes Over Europe might be worth a look. If you're expecting it to completely fulfill your air combat needs, you'll be disappointed. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty accurate. The only thing is Hawks is set in a more modern setting, and obviously Heroes Over Europe is in World War II. It's kind of almost two different worlds, especially when you consider the technology of the aircraft and the weaponry and all that stuff. Like, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I'm not a super big fan of space shooters like Halo or I guess maybe Destiny, but at the same time I enjoy more, I guess, human-on-human shooters. I don't even know if that sounds a little sexual. You know what I mean, though. This next one here is a user review. He gave the game a 10 out of 10, which, in my eyes, that's a perfect score. It's like the best game of all time. And he writes, in this game, you have 3 things to keep in mind. 1, you're going to be distracted by how beautiful everything is. 2, you're going to be pissed off because the game is hard. I love the word hard. And you're going to see dudes flying in and out of your screen like in real life. And you can't just press some magical button and make it all okay. And 3, the better you get, the better the game gets. So I'm not trying to discredit this guy. An opinion is an opinion. Say the game is beautiful, say the game is fun, whatever. That's just how you think, I guess. However, pissed off because the game is hard. Are we playing the same game here? Because, like, this one ranks as, like, one of the easiest games I've ever played. Also, what the fuck does that mean? You alright? Slipping a little bit of acid? What's going on here? Maybe it's just me. I am extremely dyslexic, I'll admit that. But this doesn't make any sense. Woo-ha! This game is a straight up rush I can. Are you friends with the other guy? Or what? It doesn't... What is it? It's not even a review. It's just you saying nothing. It's nothing. This is nothing. This last one reads, Heroes Over Europe is a stripped-down game, and it will be fairly forgotten with all the great titles coming out this fall. The rest of the world will find this game very disappointed, and probably won't be all that interested. The missions are mostly the same, and not very exciting. The ace kills can be taken out of the game, and it's not very pretty. Well, there we have it. Heroes Over Europe. Unfortunately, this would be the company's last game. Well, outside of that one sports title. It's a shame really because who knows, with more time, maybe some more effort, I think the game could have done a lot better. And who knows, maybe the company would still be around for at least a little while longer. I think it's fairly obvious the game did not sell great, especially considering all the other amazing titles that came out during this time and or were set to come out not too long after its release. Even games like Blazing Angels, which got mixed reviews, did better than Heroes Over Europe. And I think a lot of that came down to commercial advertisement and really how the publisher went around promoting the game. As far as to my knowledge, this game had very little, if any, advertisement. I didn't know anything about this game other than I found it at a GameStop nearly a decade ago for dirt cheap. And the only reason I even bought it at the time was due to my love of games in the same or similar genre as Heroes. Plus, again, it was cheap as hell. So I would say that if you are a fan of the genre, maybe stay away from this because it's not going to introduce anything to you that you probably haven't seen time and time again. And truthfully, it doesn't exactly execute anything in its core gameplay that is better than any of those other games like this. With that said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, maybe subscribe, share it if you want to annoy your friends, and until next time, everyone, please take care.